I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. My name is Kendra Corman, and I'm going to be helping Joe moderate this this webinar. So if you have questions and stuff, feel free to put them in the chat. But we appreciate you joining us today for this webinar on leveraging Microsoft's OneNote technology. I know that I'm excited to hear what Joe has to say and to learn some new things. OneNote is essential in how I do my business. And as we start to move to more in-person events, how it syncs across devices, which Joe will talk about, really does help. And I think it's going to become even more important to even more of us. Today, Joe's going to cover the basics of OneNote, some best practices around structuring notebooks, sections, and pages, leveraging the cloud to access notes from anywhere on any device, which is really important, formatting, linking, and embedding, integration with Teams, SharePoint, and Outlook. And of course, we're going to have some time for Q&A at the end. Again, be sure to type your questions in the chat. For those of you not as familiar with Teams, there's a chat bubble usually at the top of your screen that you can go ahead and use. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Joe Waynes. He's the founder and primary consultant at Turtlework, the company focused on helping you leverage Microsoft's technology.
All right, thanks, Kendra. Can everybody mute their mics? Otherwise, we get some interesting background noise. All right, so OneNote. Boy, there's a lot to cover. Let's just get into it. Go through the overview. I'm going to talk a little bit about what OneNote is if you haven't worked with it before. I'm going to talk about the versions of OneNote, meaning ways you can use OneNote, the platforms that it's available on, the general structure of OneNote, input methods, the features that are inside so you can enter content or manage and format your content, output methods, how do we get stuff out of OneNote, and then some additional demos. And like Kendra said, there's Q&A at the end. So feel free to take advantage of chat and pop those questions in. And Kendra may troll through the questions and throw some at me as I go. So what is OneNote? It's really an unconstrained note-taking tool. So if you use Word, you're used to that linear experience of you start at the top, you type, and you're always going down. You can go back and edit, but you can't really click wherever you want on a blank page in a Word document and start typing. That's what you can do in OneNote. So you can type notes, you can record audio, you can record video, you can use a stylus and sketch stuff or your mouse if you want. You can add pictures from your phone or a tablet. You can search for your notes across all kinds of notebooks. You can move your notes around the pages. You can organize those notes. You can switch devices and pick up right where you left off. I'll touch on that. And you can share your notebooks with others so that you can collaborate. I started using OneNote 5 years ago, and this is the only paper I have on my desk anymore. I do not use paper anymore in any meeting. I go in there with my laptop, with my Surface. I have OneNote open, and away I go. I have, well, you can see here, this is OneNote, and normally I present using PowerPoint when I do a webinar, but I thought I would eat my own dog food, as they say in the software world, and use OneNote for this presentation. I think you'll get a better sense of what's possible, how I use OneNote, maybe you get some ideas. So essentially, this is my marketing notebook, and you know, for better or for worse, this is the way it presents, and it works well. You'll see how it works. So first of all, here is a sort of a classic use of 4 or 5 different input methods into OneNote. So we have a page, we have a picture that's been pasted on the page. No big deal, you can do that in Word. Oh, but we've got text that's been written with a stylus. You can't really do that in Word. And oh, by the way, we can convert that to text if we wanted to. We've embedded a spreadsheet, which you can do a little bit of Word within Word. This will let you work with that spreadsheet right here. You can embed emails, basically any kind of file you want, some other things. Along this side here, we have text that's been typed in, but we've tagged those items as to do. We've tagged those items as important. We've tagged those items as ideas. We'll get into tagging as well and help you understand how you can benefit from tags. So let's keep going. Versions of OneNote. So let's start with the desktop. It's available for Windows, it's available for Mac, so no worries there. There's really only two kinds of OneNote that you encounter these days. There's the one that's just called OneNote, which is what I'm using to present, and that comes with Microsoft 365, Office 365, right? So if you've got that suite, you're most likely working in that OneNote. If you don't have that suite, there's also OneNote for Windows 10 that comes for free with the operating system. So in some cases, you end up having both. Functionality is pretty much identical. I mostly encounter and work with the first one, but there's no harm in using the other one. They present a little differently, but other than that, the functionality is all there. So you know, the ribbon is across the top, the sections are across the top, pages along the right side. That's the OneNote that I'm using and I'm most familiar with. This is the OneNote for Windows 10, where they've done sections along the left, pages along the left, the ribbon's a little smaller. Again, all the functionality is there. Mac OS looks more like the Windows 10 version. But anyway, we can use a browser. So pretty much any browser that you use in your daily operations will work with OneNote. So Edge, IE, Firefox, Chrome, Safari, those will all work with OneNote. The functionality is pretty much identical. I really haven't bumped into issues with OneNote when I'm working in the browser and it's like, oh crap, I can't use this feature. It's pretty much a one-to-one feature availability, which is really nice. Not the same for Word and Excel when you use those browser versions. So they've done a nice job with OneNote. Mobile. So OneNote works with iOS devices and Android devices. I do use OneNote on my phone pretty regular. You saw me have it up earlier as I was getting ready, and we're going to touch on that as we get into demos. iPhone, iPad, it's all there, and I've got some stories to go along with why you would use that. The general structure of OneNote is we'll start at the top, and that's the file. So a notebook is a file, and I recommend you have a lot of notebooks based on one notebook per customer. And then within that customer notebook, maybe you have sections for projects. I typically have a main section for a customer where I keep all my meeting notes, regardless of what the meetings are for. And then the projects will have their own pages or sections based on what's needed. So sections come across the top here, pages along here. So it's notebook. A notebook can have multiple sections. A section can have multiple pages. A page can have subpages, and a subpage can have subpages. And that's as far as you can go, 2 levels deep on subpages. As far as storage, like where do I store OneNote? So that was a question my wife was talking about today. She's like, you know, I saved a section, but I don't know where it ended up. So in a nutshell, I don't recommend ever saving a notebook file to your desktop. I recommend that you save it to the cloud. And the first place to save it is SharePoint. The second place to save it is Teams. And a little secret, Teams, as far as the file stuff is concerned, is SharePoint. So you really are saving it in SharePoint if you're using either one of those. And then OneDrive is the third place that I would recommend saving it from a cloud perspective. So if we take a look at, well, let me talk a little bit about syncing. So once it's saved in the cloud and you're using devices like your laptop, your Surface, a phone, a tablet, it will bring down basically a copy of that. And it keeps it in storage, and you make changes to that OneNote, and it will automatically synchronize those changes back up to the cloud. So if there's someone else looking at your notebook, they're going to see those same changes. If somebody else makes their changes, you will eventually be able to see what they've done. Sometimes there's 10-15 second delay between the updates, but I found once that the OneNote service realizes that multiple people are collaborating, the speed picks up on the synchronization stuff and you start to see things faster. So that piece is there. So how do you tell where your notebook is stored? It's really easy. You just go here on this tab, you click on Properties, and it brings up this dialog. And if you click Change Location, it's going to get very specific. So you can see that I am storing this Marketing OneNote notebook in my SharePoint, TurtleWorks SharePoint. It's in the marketing site. And we'll get more into how SharePoint does that in the next step. So to find your location, it's here. If you wanted to change the location, of course you could by clicking Change Location and moving the notebook somewhere else. Let's take a peek at SharePoint. So if this is brand new, if you've never seen SharePoint before, then check out some of my other webinars on SharePoint. But if you're used to SharePoint, somewhat familiar with it, whenever a team site is created in SharePoint, a notebook is automatically created. So I'm just going to click on that notebook link. Up pops OneNote, and like this is the browser version of OneNote. Anywhere I want to type, I just click and I can start typing, paste images, whatever it is I want to do. So to get to your notebooks in SharePoint, just look for the notebook link over on the left. From a Teams perspective, I'm going to walk you through actually creating a team and some other things, because there's aspects of this that I think are important. Let me get staged for this. So here, there we go. Okay, so this is Microsoft Teams. I'm just going to create a quick team from scratch. We'll make it private, but it doesn't really matter. And we should probably do 617. Okay, so this is a new team that gets created. And I mentioned that Teams and SharePoint are kind of integrated together. So when you create a new team, it actually goes off and creates a SharePoint site. And every new SharePoint site, as I mentioned, gets a OneNote notebook. So there is a notebook available now for us to get to. So first I have to find my new team. Okay, I am in my new team. So we have these tabs across the top. I want to get to OneNote. So I click there and I'm going to add a OneNote tab. So first I click on OneNote, and lo and behold, there's the notebook that got created with this team. And I'm going to create a section because it doesn't have one when you first start. I'm going to click Save. And I usually rename just because main doesn't really mean anything. We'll call it Webinar Notebook. Save. At this point, I have the OneNote notebook that was automatically created bound to a tab across the top. So when I'm in the general tab of this new team that I created, that notebook is always there. And anybody who's a member of this team will have access to that notebook, can enter notes there, can see what you've written. So that is how we work with OneNote in Teams, making it available for people to see. I do use the desktop application of OneNote primarily. And I do that for one reason. It's very quick. It's very easy for me to pick any of these particular notebooks and just jump around and get to another notebook. So if I'm in the browser and I want to change notebooks, I have to navigate through the browser and wait for that other site in SharePoint to render, and then click on the OneNote or the notebook tab or link and wait for the notebook to render and then start working with it. Or when I'm in Teams, there's also a delay as I switch between teams or channels and want to look at different notebooks. With the desktop version, it's as fast as I can click on something, it's coming up. So that's why I use the OneNote desktop version to make that available. Like this new notebook that I created, they always give us in the browser or in Teams the ability to open it in desktop app. So if I click that, it will actually bring up OneNote. There it is. Brings it up in the desktop version, and I can start working. You can see it's just been added to the list of notebooks that I have open. So yeah, I strongly recommend if you're getting into using a lot of notebooks, take a look at the desktop version of OneNote. I think you'll like the speed. So input methods. There's a bunch. There's the typical keyboard stuff. We can use the stylus, as I mentioned. We can record audio or video files. We can take pictures. We can drag and drop files into OneNote. So I have a, let me get back to here, there. Let me drag this over here. Just have a page that I have staged in order to do the input stuff. So typing is pretty obvious. You just use your keyboard and type wherever you want. And away we go. The stylus, I don't have a stylus connected at the moment, but I can do some things with my mouse. So I'm going to use my mouse and just, write my name, and ink to text will convert that. So voila, that works pretty well. It will do handwriting, but not as well as printing. So audio, again, pretty straightforward. We go to insert and record audio. I just click here. At this point, it's recording. We've got VCR buttons up here. I'm going to stop. And at this point, I could play it back. I'm not sure if you could hear that, but I could. Video recording is really not much different. It's just clicking record video, and it would start recording. It would embed. You get the VCR buttons, etc. As far as pictures are concerned, you can just drag image files in here. We can also do screen clipping, so we can grab screenshots. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. Or we can go to pictures and go find an image file that's on your computer somewhere. We've got online pictures as well. So Microsoft provides a repository of images you can search. And if you like what you see, you can embed it within your OneNote page as well. And then files. You could upload files through this file attachment experience, but frankly, the easiest way to add files is just to drag something over, and it gives us this option. So this is a spreadsheet of people who've registered for the webinar. Do I want to attach the file? Do I want to insert it as a spreadsheet? And because it's Excel, it knows that I can do a charter table. I'm just going to attach the file. It gives me that. If I did the spreadsheet, it would also show the actual worksheet within the workbook, and I could switch between tabs and fiddle with all of that. I have found some bugs with this feature if you're going to do a lot of editing against that spreadsheet. I've seen those spreadsheets go corrupt, so I try not to actually do that process, but adding files and referencing those files works pretty well. I just warn you against doing a lot of heavy editing against Excel within OneNote that way. As far as features are concerned, that's all this stuff up here. And I'm going to take you through these menus and point out the things that I think that are important. Some of it will be obvious, and I don't need to mention those. So first, I'll start with File. And the first place we get to is Info. These are all the notebooks that I have open, and I can see the settings of those notebooks. I could click View. I can invite people to share, look at the notebook. I can see the sync status of a particular notebook, so I can see if there's a problem with syncing. Normally there isn't. I can see if it's syncing right now. Typically it'll tell, yeah, here we go. So it says everything is up to date. So that's how that info piece works. account, let's touch there. So because we're dealing with the cloud, we need to be logged in somehow. So this is where people might get a little bewildered. So if you are using a business Microsoft 365 account, that's the account you should be logged in most of the time unless you're doing personal stuff. So you can see that's exactly who I'm logged in as, jwaynes@turtle.works. That is my Microsoft 365 account for my company, and normally I'm logged in there all the time. You'll also see down here that I am logged in to OneDrive with a personal account. I'm logged into OneDrive with my professional account, and then this is that same account that was up here. So sometimes you'll need to add an account or sign out of account or switch account. This would be the place to do it. So if you ever get, you can't get to your notebooks, you can't find what you need, this would be the place to go and start working to manage your account and sign in with the right one. Let's see, they have some interesting things embedded under account, like what version of OneNote are you using? I wouldn't have expected that here, but that's classic for all of the Microsoft products. They put it in account these days. So you can see if Office needs some updates, you could click here and it would update all your Office products. You can see what version. So this is Microsoft 365 apps for enterprise. There's a little more here. If I click this, all right, there we go. It'll give me, license ID, session ID, and a bit more details on the version of OneNote. Sometimes that's needed for troubleshooting. Options. So under here we have options. This is basically application settings for OneNote. Frankly, I rarely go in here, but if you wanted to set your default font or what color, those kind of things, they're available here for you to fiddle with. All right, then we jump over to Home. So this menu, a lot of this is standard. You've seen this in Word and Excel. I'm not going to bother with it. I do want to point out the beauty of using these styles here. So there's headings 1 through 6 and then normal. There's also page title and some other stuff. I normally just use 1 through 6, but that's me. You're free to use them all. I find that it really makes things a lot easier from a scanning perspective to see where you are in a document and see how things are related. So just by turning this into header 1, header 2, and header 3, you can see visually very quickly how things are related to other pieces within the document. If you hover over any of these heading tags, you'll see what the shortcuts are, which is what I used. Control-Alt-1 is header 1, Control-Alt-2 is header 2. You can follow the pattern down. Makes it really quick. So as I'm taking notes, I'm just hitting my Control-Alt-1, Control-Alt-2 based on what I'm doing. And you'll see me in a meeting, I can make eye contact, I can type, I can do all this stuff while we're having a conversation. And anybody
So
type
one
can
of the
get that.
questions we had for in the last OneNote webinar that you gave was, can you change the heading style of the page title?
I'd love to, but I have not found a way to do this. I've looked multiple times and we're kind of stuck with this blue, and it is what it is. So the answer is no, unfortunately. All right, let's get into tags. So depending on the type of person you are and the level of detail, you may use a lot of tags or you may use a few tags, but I think they're useful. I find them useful. Certainly the to-do tag is useful for me. It makes it very easy from a visual perspective to see at the end of a meeting, I put a to-do list together. Those little boxes are there that catch my attention and tell me those are the things you need to pay attention to. Those are the things you need to get done before you meet with these folks again. And there's some other benefits to using the to-do tags I'll get into. The same with a question or important, if depending on how you want to label things, have at it. So if I wanted to come down here and I wanted to make this a to-do, it's as simple as that. This big button here does the same thing as what I just did. You can have multiple tags, so this is an important to-do. or I have a question about this to do. So you can build up tags as you go. One of the benefits of using tags is this Find Tags feature here. So if you're using the to-do tag, at some point during your week, you might want to say, what are all the to-dos that I have? So using this Find Tags, and you can see how we're grouping tags by tag name, so you could change how you group them. But just these are all the to-dos that I have on my plate. And yeah, at this point, you can also set the scope of this tag search. So right now I'm just looking at a page group. If I wanted to look at all my notebooks, we would see a boatload of to-dos coming across. So very handy for finding things that you need to do. One other thing I want to point out is there's some integration between OneNote and Outlook. So if I wanted to actually create a task in Outlook, I can select some aspect of text and say, hey, I need to make a task for tomorrow, and there it is. And if I bop over to here, this is Outlook in the browser. I'm going to hit planned. It takes a minute or two for it to come across, but eventually we'll see it show up here under planned tomorrow. I'm not going to wait too long for it, but there it is. So it comes across. If I checked it here, it would show as checked in OneNote eventually. So nice integration between the tasks. If you're using tasks in Outlook, you might want to start doing that linking between OneNote and your Outlook tasks. What else do we have here? So let's pop over to insert. I use tables a lot. I'm guessing a lot of you use tables a lot, and this is standard stuff we see in Word. There is another way to get tables built in OneNote. We can just type some text, hit tab, and it creates a new column. Type some more text, hit tab, and it creates another column. We're done with 3 columns. We can hit enter, and it creates a new row. So if you, easy way to create a table. The other way, of course, is to just do something like this, and away we go.
So Joe, just a
yeah.
quick question. So Don Turner, he thinks he's using the web app, and he's saying he's got a lot fewer options in his ribbon, the menu. Can you find most of the same things in the web app?
I'll be honest, I don't spend a lot of time in the web app, but when I've been in the web app, I've been able to find what I needed. So I'd have to look at that in a case-by-case basis then. Yeah. And of course, you can always use the escape valve and open in the desktop app. But yeah, the last time I really did a feature search and comparison between the two, they were pretty close. All right, let me see what else we got here. So we got the table. We can insert files. We talked about inserting images. Let's talk about links. So a couple things. Let me find an email that what is this? I'm not sure. Oh, that's coming across here. I don't have a good email. What I want, maybe a web page would work. Yeah, let's jump over to a web page. What I want to point out is if you have some text that you're going to copy from some area and you put it into OneNote many times, there it is. OneNote will automatically add a link to tell you where you got that text from. You can delete that link if you want, but sometimes that's handy. So if you're using OWA, Outlook Web Access, and you copy text from an email, that'll happen. as well. So that can be handy. The other thing that's really, really nice is anywhere within the notebook, anywhere on the page, you can right click and you can copy a link to this paragraph. That's a hyperlink you can now use to get to from somewhere else. So I'm just going to copy that link and let me get out of here. And I'm going to go to, we'll just go to pre-webinar, and I'm just going to type in test here. And Control K brings up this dialog. I'm going to paste that hyperlink that I just copied in here. And now, oopsie, if I click on that, it takes me to that page. So if you have some pages that are related, the content's related, you want to be able to easily jump around within OneNote, you can take advantage of these links to do that. Recordings, we've talked about page templates. So let's get up here, insert, page templates. Out of the box, we have a bunch of templates already given to us from Microsoft. Maybe the business templates or the planners would be a place you would first go, or if you're working for a university, maybe you'd go academic. But detailed meeting notes, I'm going to click that. Automatically adds a new page with this particular format. Simple to-do list adds this. Now maybe you don't like the background or whatever. You can create your own templates and just create a new page, format it however you want, click this save current page as a template, and now you can add that template wherever you want as you're going. You can also set a template as a default page. So actually in my sales notebook in prospects, if I click new page, it automatically just adds this, and it prompts me to fill some things in anytime I have a new prospect that I'm talking to. So handy use of templates. It takes a minute to set up, but it saves you a lot of time down the road. Strongly recommend it. There's equations. So if you're a math person, actuary or whatever, there's some formulas in here. Once you paste them in here, you can fiddle with them, and then there's just some outright symbols to fool with. Ink to text. So under the draw menu, all of this is kind of standard stuff that you can fiddle with if you've done anything with a stylus before. The ink to text and ink to math, I think, are notable, and you've seen me use the ink to text feature already. History. This is rich. So if you're collaborating on a notebook, that means multiple people are using that notebook. You will see areas where, let's go back to here. So if Kendra were in here fiddling with this notebook herself, I would see the initials KC next to anything that she's changed. So the next time I go back to that page, the text will sort of be highlighted and her initials be there. I can just click mark as read, and then it makes the initials go away and the highlighting go away. Recent edits will tell you what's recently been changed on the page. Find by author. So if somebody's changed something, you can, as far as this notebook's concerned, Kendra and I are the only ones who are in here. If you haven't figured it out, Kendra does a lot of marketing for me. So I could, see things that she's touched. And then page versions. Let's get rid of these a minute and take a minute to talk about page versions. So I've been fiddling with this input demo page for a couple days. If I click here, we're going to see back since, what is that, May 19th, there's a version of this page. May 24th, there's a version. I can see what this page has looked like. I can actually roll back to one of those versions if I wanted to. As well. So if you're doing some work and you realize, oh crap, I deleted a bunch of this, I deleted a bunch of content on this page, and I need to be able to see what that content page or that content was, you can just go to page versions, go look at one of the previous days, and get your content back. And you just Click on that button again, it hides all those previous versions. There's also a recycle bin, so if you delete a page or a section by accident, you can always go to the recycle bin and bring your stuff back as well. Under review, the only thing that I really find of note is that we can password protect a section. So sometimes you need that. The only place that I would probably use that, frankly, I've never used it at this point, but when I'm going to share a notebook, I might use password protection on a section there. And when I get to that part of the demo, I'll explain why. Under view, everything's kind of self-evident. The one that I use regularly is this new window. So I'm here. Actually, I did this to get the webinar going. I needed to follow the script, but I also needed to jump to a page so that I could demo stuff. So I have two copies of OneNote going. One has got the script and one has the content that I'm fiddling with. All I did was open the notebook once. I hit new window. It opens up another copy of the notebook in the same spot. At this point, I can go wherever I want and not affect the notebook that I had open before. So that's a handy feature I use regularly. Finally, search. So over here on the right, we have search, and we can set the scope of search. So if we wanted to find things just on this page or in this section or section group or this notebook or all the notebooks that I have open, I can set the scope for that and then find things. I use this a lot. So I know I wrote notes for that, but I can't remember exactly where they are. Well, I use search to go find it. All right, let's take a minute and talk about output methods. So you got all this content in there, you formatted it. Most of the time, all you're ever going to do is open a notebook, go to a page and read it. Maybe you'll update it. Maybe you'll share it with somebody else. You'll put it up on a monitor or something and show it during a meeting, right? So that's the primary use. But sometimes you need to get a page or something out and to someone, or you need a hard copy. So we have print. And print, the best way to deal with print is using print preview. So let's take a minute and look at that. So we go here, we go to print, and we've got print, but it's not as obvious what the scope of what you're printing is. So let's go to print preview. It's going to, by default, print the current page. If you just grab some section of a page, it's not going to restrict printing to that section. It will always print the page. So you can see we've got, I don't know, I think 9 pages, maybe 10, 11 pages of that would be printed on paper to accommodate all of the content that's on this particular OneNote webinar page. Now I could open that scope up to a page group, and a page group is, if you look over where my mouse is, that's any subpages under OneNote webinar. So that's page group includes all of these other pages. That's going to take this way past 11 up to I don't know how many. And of course, we can continue opening up the scope to current section. That's going to take it up to 40 some pages or so. And print it out, print's fine. Normally it formats and prints pretty well in the printer. I really don't have issues with how it appears. You can share a notebook. And this is where I might lock a section. So you can't just share a page. You can't just share a section. You always have to share the entire notebook. So maybe there's content in there that's private and you don't want that content to be shared with the people that you're sharing the notebook with. So you could go to approve. You could password protect that particular page. I'm sorry, that particular that particular section, my bad. It's actually at a section level. So you might want to, password protect who the cool people are, and then you share the marketing notebook, and unless they have the password, they can't see who the cool people are. And share is just, here, and you follow the bouncing button, put in an email address. You can decide whether they can edit or just view. And away you go. I think I'm going to try to share this with my Gmail
Joe,
account. Yeah.
quick question. So on the sharing of the notebook, is that irrespective of any rules you might have in SharePoint or anything about who can see different files and folders and stuff?
No, so if there's policy level that's restricting your ability to share, then you won't be able to do this, right?
Okay.
So there's a thing known as a tenant within Microsoft 365, and that's sort of the apartment building that you're in that gives you access to all these Microsoft tools. And if they decide that you're not going to have hot water in that building, you're not going to have hot water in the building, regardless of whether you install a faucet that's got two knobs or not. So yeah, so if they make policy settings at the tenant level that restrict you from sharing, you won't be able to share. Export, and like I said, I can probably count on two fingers how many times I've shared notebooks with outside people. Within my organization, of course, that I do all the time, but it's pretty rare that I actually share notebooks with people outside. I will export pages, right, or sections or whatnot. So, and actually part of the follow-up for this webinar is you'll get a copy of this OneNote notebook. So if we go to export, we can see what the scope is, page, section, notebook, and the format. So I can export another OneNote file. So I've got a new notebook with just that page in it, or a new notebook with just that section, or a new notebook that's a complete copy of the one I'm exporting. I can also do it as Word or PDF or these two other formats here. And then finally, I can send. This is kind of cool. So if I wanted to email a page, all I do is click this, and there wasn't much content. Boy, that was a dud. let me find something a little more interesting. Here, we'll go here, file, send, email a page, wait for it, and there it is. So all that content on this page is automatically stuffed into your email body, and it's formatted very well. It's very clean and crisp. It's beautiful how well that piece works. So if you wanted to just send a page, you could do that from the export option here. I'm sorry, the send option. And let's see, where else do we need to go? We've done all of that. We've done all of that. All right. So I mentioned, well, I didn't mention, but you've been seeing SP Marketplace's logo on some of the slides. So they're a partner of mine. They make some products using Microsoft 365 tools for typical organizational leads, like an HR portal, an IT portal, maybe you have safety site or facilities. So they've done a lot of the work that prevents you from having to do things from scratch yourself, and it ends up saving you some time and of course money by doing that. So I've been working with SP Marketplace for a couple of years now, and you know, we work together where we do customization on their stuff, and when I see the need to just use one of their products, I'll recommend it. So they are helping from a promotional perspective of this webinar. Let's take a minute to do some additional demos, but I don't want to take too much time away from our 15 minutes remaining to deal with any Q&A.
Joe, just a quick question.
Yep.
Someone was asking about creating a sub page. So before you go and do another demo, I was wondering if you could show us how to create a sub page.
Oh yeah, this is really simple. So here I am at OneNote webinar. I'm going to add a new page. Maybe that's a bad idea. Let's go down here and create a new page down here. So it's at a top level. We'll call this the main page, right? And I need to create another page that's going to be a sub page. So I go down here and I'm going to call this Subpage 1, right? All you have to do is right click on Subpage 1 and make it a subpage. And I can add a page under here. Now you see when I added the new page, it automatically is indenting the new pages. It's making all of these new pages subpages. But if I wanted to make this particular page a subpage of Subpage 1, I can. And at this point, I can't go any farther. I can create a new page, but I can't make another subpage. I can promote, which basically just sends it back up a level. And we can also collapse subpages, which basically just shrinks everything to sort of a tree view experience as well. Let me see. All right, so mobile. So I mentioned I have literally shown up at for meetings. I'm getting out of my car and I know there's 5 people in the room and I can only remember 3 names. I have literally pulled out my phone and gone into OneNote to see who all the other folks are that I'm meeting with. So this is the OneNote application. It's free. All of the Office applications are free for Microsoft. They work on Android and iOS. So in this particular case, we are dealing with, let me see, don't tell me, don't tell me. Just when you think you had it all figured out, we're having goo. Well, as a sidebar, there's an app in Windows called Your Phone that will synchronize with Android and iOS phones, and you can send text messages from it. And it's not going to work for me at the moment. Why not? Give me a second.
You spend too much time prepping it.
I
It's
guess.
you were too
I
prepared.
guess. Oh, too bad.
Task manager. End program.
Yeah, that's what I keep trying to do. Let's do this here.
I'm a big fan of Control-Alt-Delete.
And if I can, this looks promising. Apps. OneNote. Yeah. Let me bring this up. There we go. Whew. All right. So OneNote app. I can drill into this OneNote webinar, and lo and behold, here is that same presentation that I'm giving you. It's here on my phone. If I change the phone's orientation, you'll see that OneNote follows along, sometimes makes it easy. If I jump to, let's go here and take a look at notebooks. So maybe you didn't find the page you wanted to when you first opened up OneNote. So you just go to notebooks and it's going to remember some of the notebooks that you're in. You can also go to more notebooks and it will go through every notebook that it can find in the cloud that's associated with you. So I'm going to tap on Marketing OneNote, Webinars and Subinars. Let's go to, I'm just going to create a new page. So here we have a new page, and I can just sort of thumb my way through. Let me switch to actually holding my phone. If I wanted, I could call this main. So standard stuff, you can see the typical formatting and attachments and whatever. This is very handy. Depending on your job, if you're out and about and you've got to take some pictures, so maybe you're in the safety department, you got to do some inspections, or you're going out, you're doing HVAC work and you got to do an estimate, and you want to take a look at things and bring some pictures back to the office. You know, here we've got little turtle sitting on a rock. This point, that is embedded in my OneNote page. And it's as simple as that to take pictures from your phone and automatically add it to OneNote. And now I can put some, caption stuff here with, it's actually a petrified tree that he's sitting on that I got from a glacier in New Zealand. So anyway, enough of that. So OneNote on the phone works very well. I use it all the time. Sometimes I'm out and about and it's like something pops in my head and I want to write it down to remember it. I open up OneNote, I write it there so that I can get to it from wherever. What I'd love to do is show you that this came through here. There it is. Look at that. So voila, now you can see I just switched devices. I'm on my laptop. That picture is sitting there in my OneNote page. Real benefits to using the cloud. Let me see if there's anything else here I really want to touch on. No, one last thing is the Outlook piece. So we can open up an appointment in Outlook and then get a OneNote associated with that particular appointment. So let me jump over to my calendar. We're in this meeting right here. I'm going to open that up. If I click here, you'll see, and this is the browser version of Outlook. It's the same in the desktop version of Outlook. There's these three dots known as ellipses. They're located in a little different spot, but you click on them, you've got OneNote, and it's automatically going to say, hey, where do you want this page that I'm going to create to be located? I'm just going to put it in the marketing webinars and seminars notebook. Click save. It will take a minute, but it will eventually, at the bottom of this list, it's going to add another page with the name of the meeting, with a little blurb about the meeting itself. So if you want to take some notes for a meeting, that can be a very quick way to get started, is just to, from Outlook, do that kind of thing. So that's all I have at this point. There's a bunch of other topics that came up as I was prepping for this, and I think maybe I need to do a OneNote 2 down the road. But I think I've covered a lot of ground. I hope people got something useful from the presentation. Like I said, you'll get a copy of this presentation as follow-up. We've also recorded this, so you'll get a link to a video so you can watch the recording as well. So what do we have for questions, Kendra?
So one question that I thought was good that came in the last on the last webinar was, how do you move or copy pages? Because I think that can be helpful if you're starting with stuff from before.
Sure. Depending on what you want to move, it's usually just a right click away. So if well, here's that new notebook page that I created. Oh, look, here's the name of the meeting, subject, all of the attendees, some information, and yada yada. So that's what you get when you do that process. But if I wanted to move this page, it's as simple as right clicking, move or copy. Now I can decide where do I want to move it. So these are all the notebooks that I have open on my desktop. So let me find something. Yeah, we'll move it to GLW just for grins. I'll move it to the main section of GLW. Voila, it's been moved. It's no longer here. I would have to go to the GLW notebook to see it. The same is true for sections. I can move or copy a section. It's going to give me the dialog. Where do you want to put it? And away you go. In this case, I just copied that. So anyway, that's how you move or copy.
Thank you. Mark Riemann has his hand raised. Mark, do you want to unmute yourself?
Just really quick, we have an organizational tool that we use for producing our weekly church live stream, and I suspect it's built on the OneNote engine, but I haven't been able to find anything to determine that because it probably could be proprietary. But is there any way to tell? Because it sure looks, the interface looks almost identical to this, to some of the things that you were displaying.
I'd have to see it, Mark. I can't off the top of my head. You're using live stream, like what?
Well, our church,
like Teams?
Our church produced. Yeah, well, no. It's a web-enabled application that we use to organize in preparation for our weekly live stream.
Oh, okay.
And it has all kinds of organization related to, the church service.
The only product out there that I know of like OneNote is Evernote.
Yeah, so I know what Evernote looks like, and I'm telling you that this one that we're using looks almost identical to some of the output that you are displaying here.
Okay, and very likely, so Microsoft builds their stuff, so it's sort of like Lego. So it programmatically, you could grab OneNote and embed it in something. So it's very possible that's what they've done.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so so Joe, just another question that we had. When you're structuring a notebook, whether it's a notebook, a section, or a page, do you have any recommendations on how you go about that?
So the question dovetails into Teams, and it dovetails into SharePoint as well. Like, how do we structure those things so that we don't build this organic beast that becomes too unwieldy to manage and to find things in? What I do, all of my notebooks are bound to a team or a SharePoint site. So in this case, it's the marketing notebook. I have a marketing site, which also has a marketing team. So there's one notebook for that whole experience. And then within there, I have various tabs. So within Teams, you saw me create a team and bind it to the notebook. If I were to create another channel within that particular team, I could point it to the same notebook, but point it to a particular section. So that's another way to continue that. I want to say one notebook per client is the best way to approach organizing this. And then within that notebook, let me see if I have if I did this in GLW. Yes, I did. So what I typically do is I have the notebook for the customer. I create a section called main, and that's where I keep meeting notes. What I've found is I can't easily put notes based on topic or project in various pages, because I'll walk into a customer and we may talk about 5 projects, and now I'm putting stuff all over the place, but my to-dos are all over the place, and the follow-up gets clumsy. So I put everything within this main section and then a page called meetings, and I'll just, new meeting, and it's 6/17, and what's it for, and who's in it, and then I just start taking notes. When I'm done, I always summarize my stuff. After a meeting, I take 5-10 minutes and summarize what happened and what I need to do. And there, I may distribute stuff within a particular project page or a project section. Or if I'm taking requirements, for a project, I'll jump over to that project page and take the requirements there. But typically when I'm in a meeting, I just do it here. So notebook per client, and then within that client notebook, a main section for general stuff. And if you look, I'm not sure I have it in this. GLW is an old customer. Yeah, right here. Typically in the main, I have. I don't show it, but I have a bar across the top that who the people are and what their contact info is and whatnot. And then I have sections per project and then pages within there. So I hope that was useful.
Thank you. I know a lot of people have to go, and it is a little bit after 3. So I do want to thank everybody for joining us. Just so you know, we will be sending, God forbid any technology issues, but we will be sending out a copy of the recording and an opportunity to set up a 15-minute meeting with Joe to review your OneNote if you're using OneNote, or if you're wondering where to get started or trying to find your OneNote, because I've spent hours trying to do that before. And Joe will be happy to go ahead and go over that with you and really highlight it. I think it's a great tool. Thank you, Joe, so much for doing this webinar. I think a lot of people got a lot out of it. And I know this is the second OneNote webinar I've attended that Joe has done. And I never knew that your phone app was in there. It included in my computer. So I've already already opened it up. It started to sync. So thank you so
Yeah,
much for that. I
peop-
think it'll be fantastic. And again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to email Joe and reply to the email that you'll get with a copy of the recording and a copy of the OneNote notebook that he's going to send you, or an opportunity to go ahead and schedule a meeting with him.
All
All right.
right. Thanks,
Thank you.
Kendra. Thanks everyone for attending. We'll see you.